Hello, this is Bill Milhone, and in this video we're going to be talking about preparing your images for use in the content management system. We're going to be talking about the important issues that you need to be considering when you're dealing with images, such as the size of the image, the content of the image, whether you need to crop it, how to modify the picture. We're also going to be talking about the file types that are available to use. There's JPEGs and GIFs and PNGs and such. And we'll also talk about the image editors that you can use to do your work. Now, before you even put a picture on the page, you got to think about the picture. You got to think about it before you even load it into the system. When you take a picture directly out of a digital camera, it's going to be very, very large. It's going to be about 3,000 pixels wide. Now, they have to do that because pictures from a digital camera are designed to print. And you have to have that much information to make a print look good. But that's not our consideration here. Our consideration is downloading speed. The bigger the picture you put up, the harder it is to download. Here at the university, we've got a pretty fast internet, but other people may not have that. Plus, if they're going to be using cell phones or tablet devices, it's going to take a lot of their data plan. If you've got a pretty good reason to put up a big picture, go ahead and do it. Just make sure you tell people ahead of time, this is a large image. It may take a little bit to download. The system allows you 8 megabytes. That's how big your photo and actually any file can be. But 8 megabytes is enormous. I was looking at my pictures, and after doing this for, 4 years or so, the biggest picture I have is 762 kilobytes. That's less than an old floppy disk. So I think you're going to have to work real hard to get a picture anyway. That's 8 megabytes. You might have a PDF or something that's larger. I think I've got some 4 or 5 meg PDFs, but that's a different story altogether. You should also think about your pictures and how you're going to use them and how they will be viewed in your website, especially with the limited real estate you have, about 592 pixels wide. Now, think about your department picture. I just happen to have one that I found on the internet. It's a good-looking group of people. Look at a lot of nice smiles. It's kind of dark, and it's pretty wide and pretty tall. So let's see if we can improve upon it. So I'm going to crop out the information that we don't need in this picture. We don't need the top. We don't need all their legs, so we can crop that out. And we don't need this guy because he's not smiling. If you'd been smiling, buddy, you'd have made the picture. So that's a nice looking group of people there. But I think we can even do better because it's kind of dark. So a lot of these programs, and this is a program that comes with a Macintosh. There's a lot of free software out there. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to adjust the color. This is one of the things you're going to see in a lot of programs, this auto level. It does some math wizardry in the background, and it figures out how to brighten up a lot of things all at once. So I would hit auto levels, and why, that's pretty good right there. Just the way it is. You can see there's a whole bunch of other things you can play with. And I suggest that you just do that. You just move things around until you get the picture the way you want. One thing that people at the university do a lot of is create profile pages, which means you'll have to have a bunch of small pictures to put in with each of the individual profiles. A lot of times you'll have a picture and then you'll have text below it or to the side of it. I'm going to suggest that you think about each one of the pictures and try to make them be about the same size. Now, if you're going top to the bottom, maybe it's more important to have them all be the same width. It'll be easier to see that the pictures aren't the same width than it would be to see that they're not the same height. And, sometimes the pictures are shaped differently, and it's just a little bit easier to do that. So I've got some more pictures. Let's take a look. And I'm going to talk about some of these pictures. I got them all off the internet, and so there's some things to think about as we go. Okay, now this first picture, if you take a look at it, everything is kind of dark except for the very bright windows in the background. One of the things I've learned over the years I've been doing this is that try very hard not to take pictures of people in front of windows. It just completely changes the dynamic of the shot. Now, there's one way to get around this. If you've got windows in the back, if you can bring some light in front of the subject, so light is shining in front of the person and that there's backlighting coming from the back, that can very often balance it out. Now, one thing to always remember, it is better to take a good picture than try to clean it up later. But let's take a look at what we might be able to do. This program that I'm using is Apple Preview. It comes free with all the Macintosh computers. If I go up to the Tools menu, you'll see things that a lot of programs are going to have. I'm going to try to adjust the color. Brings up this palette. You've got a way to raise and lower some of the dark tones and bring up others. But you can see as I do this, while, yeah, you can see the person a little bit better, but you can also see that, for instance, the colors in his vest are getting blown out. Now, what happens if I hit this auto level button? You'll see auto levels in a lot of programs. You know, doesn't do much for it. If I can reset it, try it again, just auto levels, doesn't do much, because what it's doing is there's a math calculation that's going on in the back, and it's trying to account for all lights and darks in the entire program. If I were in Photoshop, I'd probably mask out all this background here so that only his face and his vest I might be able to bring up those colors by themselves. But with this free program, you don't have those options. I might be able to bring up exposure a little bit, maybe try to get some contrast. It's just kind of hard. Sometimes you can accommodate with the saturation, which means the higher the saturation, the richer the colors. All right, if this is the picture I have to work with, then this one looks okay. Let's try a different picture with a different situation. Now, this next picture has a different set of circumstances. It's quite a large picture. You can see I'm stretching it out and it's getting bigger and staying relatively in focus. See, it's not even set to the actual size. Let me click that button. Yes, it's quite big. Now, if I were the person in charge of this website, I would just have her head and shoulders, because it's supposed to be a profile picture. Now, you know, could be that this person wanted to have all this other information included in this picture. But let's, if we were going with a size of about 150, let's kind of simulate what 150 pixels wide would look like. I'm just going to shrink it. See, that's about 150, and you can really barely see her. So, what else could we do? Well, we have our solution is to crop. And in this program, all you have to do is drag a box around this person. I'm going to move a little bit over here so I don't get that building in the way. And there's really not much I can do about this building. I want to get some of her hair in there. Maybe a little shorter. The more you can crop out, the more is going to show up when you reduce the size. There we go. Now, that's still pretty big. It's not 150. So up in the tools area, we can come down to adjust size. Now, most of your programs that you're going to use are going to have adjust size. But let's take a look at this box. It talks about the resolution being 72. Now that means 72 pixels per inch. For the longest time, I'd say for the last 30 years, we've been taught that 72 pixels per inch, 72 to maybe 76, and in some cases 96, 72 pixels per inch is the standard for web-based images. Now, as the internet gets faster and faster, they've increased that, and there's some people that are putting up much larger pictures. But as I've mentioned before, not everybody has a fast internet. So I'm just going with 72. Over here, you've got the width at 299, and the height is 388. But remember, we were talking about how the height wasn't as important as the width. Now, let's say that the 150 is what our width is going to be. Notice how if I change the width, it also changes the height. That's because this lock is on and it is scaling proportionally. If I turn this lock off, it's no longer doing that. But if I go ahead and hit OK, it's going to give me a very strange shaped person. So I'm going to leave the lock on. 150, because we want it proportional. I'm going to click OK, and there it is. Now, one issue with this picture as it sits is the background. It's kind of blowing out the rest of the colors. So we'll bring up the adjust color window like we did a little bit ago. I'll hit the auto levels. Not much. Let's see what I can do by messing with these values here. Okay, so that's not so bad. And I'm going to raise the saturation. Okay. Again, it's always best to take a good picture. But if this is the picture I've got to work with, it looks okay now. Okay, I'd like to take just a few minutes to briefly go over the 3 kinds of file formats that you're likely to use when you add images to your website. I'm not going to go into great detail because there are tons of websites out there right now. If you want to learn more in-depth information, what I Googled for this demonstration was PNG versus JPEG versus GIF. And if you Google that, you're likely to come up with probably 50 pages that talk about this in much more detail. There are websites out there with technical specifications. If you want to know, you're going to find it. Okay, I've got a graphic. I went out and found a high quality, in other words, a high resolution image, because I wanted to start out with the best image I could. Here's the thing about that. If you find a low quality image out on the web, there's nothing you can do to make it look better. You want to start out with the highest quality and go down in size. It's not very easy, if you can do it at all, to come back up in quality. There's no such thing as enhance, at least not available to us. Now, top left corner is the original PNG. You can see that it's 3 meg, a little bit, tiny bit more than 3 meg, but take a close look at the image. This is the highest quality I could find. There are just a couple little instances of artifacts in there, but if you look around the shape of the faces, the outline, you don't see a lot of artifacts. All the colors are blended. You can see individual freckles, and they look like freckles. They don't look like squares. They don't look like pixels. So this is the highest quality. I don't think I would use a 3 meg picture on a website unless I really had to have that high quality. I'd probably reduce this, optimize it for the web, and you can do that by using what I'm using right now is the Save for Web in Photoshop, but it's also built into some other programs. There's also some other programs out there for taking PNGs and optimizing them, because just so you know, when you take a picture with your camera or with your phone, there's a lot of information inside that picture that has nothing to do with the image itself. It's text. It says when the date was taken, what time it was taken, what your camera was set at, all the settings for your camera inside, location. I mean, it could give coordinates, longitude and latitude, where you were standing when this was taken. So, I mean, there's a ton of information inside the picture that can be stripped out to make your picture smaller. Down at the bottom is a medium quality JPEG. Now, for a long time, JPEGs have been the pictures people use on the web for higher quality. Now, this is not a high quality JPEG, but you're starting to see all the little individual squares in the back. Actually, they're rectangles. And as you go around the nose, you can start to see that there are introduced just a few here and there. It's not as crisp. The colors aren't necessarily as blended as well. But it's still, I mean, if you look at it from far away, it looks pretty good. the difference between, I told you the ping was 3 meg. The medium quality JPEG is 228K. So it's not even a quarter the size of a floppy disk. Here's a low quality JPEG, and you can definitely see the pixelization now. Colors aren't blending in certain areas, not very well. Look at the outlines of the faces. There's lots of little artifacts. Of course, I'm zooming in. If you zoom back out, it still looks fuzzy, but not as much. I mean, you could use this. Now, down on the very bottom is a GIF. Now, the difference between a GIF, the biggest difference between a GIF and the other formats, PNG and JPEG, is that a GIF can only hold 256 colors or less, while the PNG and the JPEG can hold millions. And the way JPEGs and GIFs work is they throw away information. They're lossy compression schemes. To save space, they get rid of similar, side-by-side similar colors. The color palette for a GIF is only going to be 256 colors. So that means that a lot more of these pixels are going to be standing out. But then again, 292K, that's pretty small. Now the other thing, GIFs and PNGs can have transparent backgrounds. In other words, I could cut out this photograph background here, and whatever I put this image over top of will show through. You can't do that with JPEGs. GIFs and PNGs can do animation, and you've probably seen lots of GIF animation out there. They're kind of silly, but which leads people to think that the GIF format is a novelty, but there's still a lot of good uses out of it. I use single colored GIFs because I can spread them around. I can make them be long and skinny or short and fat, and I'm not losing any quality, and I'm not gaining anything in terms of file size. So there you go. You've got PNGs, two kinds of JPEGs, and a GIF, any of which will be fine for you to use, depending on the quality you want and the look you're going for. Okay, I'd like to talk about a few programs that you can get for free to do all of your graphic editing. Some are built into your computers, and others you'll need to find on the internet. First off is GIMP, the new image manipulation program. It's been around for quite a while. It's free. It's professional grade and can do almost everything that Photoshop can do. Some say it has a bit of a learning curve, but you should be able to get inside and do the basic things that you need to do to make your programs work. It's available at www.gimp.org, and it's for Macintosh and PC. Now, the next program you have no doubt seen in the past if you're a Windows user. The Microsoft Paint program has been around for generations, but it has been updated quite a bit recently, and for a free program should do exactly what you want it to do when you're editing pictures for your website. The easiest way to find it is to go to your search box on your Windows PC, type in Paint, and it should just come right up in the Start menu. Paint.net is another program that you can download from the internet for free. It's not made by Microsoft. It has a full-featured set of tools that's going to allow you to do everything you want to do on the basic level for creating web graphics and more. So it's a very good choice. And of course, Preview is the Mac standard, and I've used it a couple times in this video. It comes with the Macintosh. It's only available for Macintosh. Not only does it open up graphics and allow you to edit them on a basic level, cropping and changing color values and the size value, that kind of thing, but it also does the same thing for PDFs. It allows you to create PDFs and organize them and do all sorts of things. And you can get more information from the Apple support website. Just go to Google and search for Apple Preview.